Okay, here we are. Listen, this is Two Old Geeks, and Sparky's finally here. I told you Sparky would be here, and at some point. And what we're discussing is how to change my BIOS in my Dell Inspiron 530. Well, here's the thing. It's a Dell Inspiron 530. And some of you may have seen some of my other videos where I actually put in a new motherboard, well, a refurbished motherboard off of eBay, into a Dell Inspiron 530 case. And I was having some time there trying to get all the drivers and everything, and get it all updated and ready. But I finally got a functional operating system on it. And lo and behold, I discovered that the motherboard was not out of a Inspiron 530, but out of a Vostro 200. Now, the motherboards are identical. We're talking about, the same revision number. We're talking about the same make and model. But the difference is the BIOS. The BIOS is different. Now I'm wondering, is it possible for me to reflash the BIOS, because I can't use it. I cannot do this with Dell's tools or Dell's utility. I tried that. It just says that it's not compatible, but really that's because it's reading that there's a Vostro BIOS in the motherboard. For all intents and purposes, the motherboard is identical. And I would just like to see. So, as I told you before, I can't put the camera on Sparky, but Sparky can explain this to me. So, Sparky, how do I go about this?
Well, your BIOS is a standard flash EEPROM.
Okay.
It is no different than a micro SD card or a USB flash drive.
Right.
The memory part. There is no bridge or control circuitry in it in the way that there is in a micro SD or a flash drive. Those both have a parallel to serial controller chip.
So would it be considered static or volatile, or?
It would be non-volatile in the same way that flash RAM is non-volatile.
Okay.
Now, using a easily available programmer with an appropriate adapter socket, it is possible
to reprogram the chip.
To reprogram it with the correct BIOS. You could take your BIOS out of one motherboard and copy it to another motherboard.
Oh.
Now, having said that, there are some caveats.
Okay.
First caveat is, even though the motherboard might have the same make, model, and revision number,
okay,
if it is for a different series, there could be some small differences within, like, your bridge chip, your SATA controller, your USB controller chips.
Okay, stop right there. When you say bridge chip, do you mean like your South Bridge, that sort of thing?
Yes.
Okay, all right. CMOS?
Your CMOS stores your system variables. Now, the make and model could be hardwired or burned into it.
Okay.
And you would find that out very quickly after doing your BIOS.
And
copy.
Of course, it would not be reversible.
If you take the original BIOS and save a copy of it, which is strongly recommended,
I would imagine so.
Then you can go back. If you just say to heck with it, you delete it, and you just wipe it and reprogram it,
that's risky business.
You are out of luck.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, I'm just wondering, is it maybe worth it for me to go through all the trouble just to make my BIOS match the writing on the outside of the case, or if I should just go with the Bostro. See, here's the problem I'm having. The Inspiron 530 that I had, that we're looking at right now, the Dell Inspiron 530, that one the camera's pointing to. That one, when I go into the BIOS, I have the option of going IDE, AHCI, or RAID. The three settings. Oh, wouldn't you know it? The phone's ringing. I may just ignore that. Yeah, I'm going to ignore that.
Sorry about that, folks.
Yeah, sorry about that. So those are the three options I have in my BIOS. Okay, to go IDE, AHCI, or RAID. But with this Dell Vostro BIOS, if I want to go AHCI, I have to select RAID. And then it says AHCI installed. And I don't get the warning with the exclamation saying, you know, that the AHCI in the BIOS is missing. So technically, I suppose what I could do is just switch to RAID, but here's the challenge in that. When I do that, it looks as though I'm going to have to reinstall my operating system, because even though the Intel chip sees it as a non-member operating system in the RAID configuration, it won't boot. The operating system still refuses to boot, which I find rather odd. But I suspect it's because I didn't initially install the operating system while the BIOS was in RAID mode.
Okay, you brought up several points.
Yeah.
Now to answer them roughly in order, as far as copying your BIOS, the programmer with an assortment of adapter sockets plus software, including a ISP or in-circuit programmable jumper cable for the single chip microcontrollers. Those systems typically run $80 to $120 on eBay.
Yikes!
So
probably really not worth the effort to change this on a dumpster diver unit.
If you were buying it specifically for that,
yeah,
chances are maybe.
Okay.
If you are a technology collector who would like to have or would like to restore the computer to factory specifications, i.e. motherboard, BIOS, all of that,
right,
it might be worth your time. Now,
okay,
depending on the computer and what it's worth on the used market or to a collector, you may or may not get your money back for the programmer. However, a second option is to get hold of a friend
a friend like Sparky
is going to be getting one who does not have one at present.
Oh, that's too bad.
However, so that's your answer for that stage. Now, Sparky is old. He's been sparked a few too many times. So what was the second part, please?
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to know. I obviously you've answered my question. It's not economically viable when you're dealing with a dumpster diver situation, which is essentially the level that we're on here. Never mind level 1. This is the ground zero here. I'm just trying to do a series of dumpster diver videos where I would like to encourage and what's the right word? Motivate other people not to throw their old PCs in the garbage, because I find a lot of people doing that and they have plenty of life left in them. You can open up your emails, you can do all these things with them. Just with a little TLC, you can upgrade it a little and you're good to go. Instead of spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a new computer, why not consider, hanging on to your old computer and making it work, and also having the added benefit that in the event that you do buy a new computer, you still have a backup computer. You still have a backup PC that can still do all the basic tasks like running a scanner, running a printer, opening your emails, maybe playing some flash games, for those people who like to use, social media, that sort of thing. A lot of these computers, even DDR, something as old as DDR2, for example, still, I use memory to sort of grade computers, because the memory actually kind of berates the general time that PC came from. DDR. Now DDR, I can understand people maybe not wanting to keep a DDR computer, but still, you can still scrounge some parts from that, before you chuck it. I realize, when you're talking about the DDR age, you're looking at 20 years. 20 years ago, there was DDR. Then they stopped making it and they went to DDR2 and then DDR3, and then now we've got DDR4, and DDR5 is already on the horizon. So, you're going back a ways when you're going to DDR2. And I'm thinking to myself, the camera's pointing at a DDR2 computer, and I know that computer, I can open up emails, I can visit any website I like with it, no problem. I can even with a graphics card, I can play mid-level online gaming, flash games that are browser operated. I can run my scanner. I can operate a printer. It does all the basic tasks. Why throw something like that in the garbage? That's what I want to understand. Is why people are doing this. I'm seeing so much waste going on these days. And then, if they're new, DDR3, DDR4, DDR5 computer, whatever, has a problem, and it turns out to be a kind of a serious problem where they're going to be set back a few days, well, they have their old standby handy. They can still use the DDR2. And then there's the aspect of giving it to maybe an underprivileged person who doesn't have a computer at all. There's so many good reasons, and of course there's the environmental reasons. So basically, I wanted to get not this one, because this one here, this one that the camera's pointing at does have the original Inspiron 530 BIOS in it. Unfortunately, 2 ports are burnt, and I explained the reason why in another video, why those 2 ports are burnt. It wasn't any doing of my own. And actually, Sparky, you're kind of privy to some of the reason on that. You're the one that did that testing. And in another video here, we're going to do that, showing how to test power supplies. But to make a long story short, the unit came with the wrong power supply, and I wasn't aware of that when I purchased it, and so I lost 2 hard drives. So, but other than that, the BIOS works fine in this one, and I don't know that we could transfer it to the other one that's, a Vostro 200. I think what I'm going to do is look up the specs on the Vostro 200 and see if they're, if they give me any advantage over Inspiron 530. It doesn't look like they do, because if the Vostro 200 BIOS only offers me RAID or IDE and defaults to AHCI when I select RAID in the BIOS, I don't think that's as handy as having, or specific as, being able to go, I will choose AHCI without RAID, or I will choose AHCI with RAID, or I will choose IDE. Or maybe I could, no, I was just thinking, just playing around my head, maybe I could make one computer all PATA. But,
now, if I can just quickly interject.
Yes.
Doing a functional restore where your primary purpose in restoring the computer is for either a backup or just a basic machine for watching online videos. The exact motherboard, make, model, what the BIOS says does not have to agree with what's on the case. As long as you got a case, a hard drive, DVD-ROM, even that is optional if you just want to do online stuff.
Yeah.
So basically, one hard drive, keyboard, mouse, monitor. Even if the, that's a good basic system for just watching online videos. Another advantage of that is it makes a good little backup system. However, if you do not use it day to day, it is a very good idea to take it out, knock the cobwebs off.
Every now and then.
Once about every 3 months to 6 months.
Yeah, get it updated.
Fire it up.
Yes.
Not only for the updates, but more importantly, the electrolytic capacitors in your power supply and on the motherboard, if they sit too long, the aluminum oxide on one of the capacitor electrodes will break down, and you have a good chance of the capacitor internally short-circuiting.
Now, is that a cathodic process that occurs there when the capacitor breaks down?
It's a chemical process.
It's a chemical process.
Aluminum oxide being reverted back to aluminum.
Right. Okay. All right. I was just curious about that. So yeah, it's good to boot it up now and then. That makes sense. Another option.
And then with the electrical, when an electrical voltage is applied to an electrolytic capacitor, it helps to maintain and actually rebuild the oxide layer on the electrolytic. This only applies, however, as far as Sparky knows, or has found out, to polarized capacitors. Those are the ones that have a little negative sign.
Yes, I've seen them. Yeah. Okay. Well, another thing I wanted to point out here, the thought came to me, is another reason, I guess, for hanging on to your old PC instead of chucking it in the dumpster, and getting rid of it right away, is that they can also second as a NAS. Now, I mean, especially some of these older computers that, like these Dells here, that use very little power, originally at least, it might be a handy idea in that regard too, to run them as a NAS. That way they stay running a little bit more, and we can avoid that problem with capacitors and whatnot. But at either rate, you got to put power to it now and then. You got to keep it alive a little bit, and at least even just to get your updates or whatever it is that you need. But the whole theme here with making these video recordings is, to prompt, encourage people to reuse, and the old reuse, recycle thing, but to reuse their PC. Don't get rid of it. Don't throw it away. Consider all the various options that are out there. There are people who don't have PCs, you could gift them with a PC. But it's just, I've seen so many PCs in my day being thrown in dumpsters. I've rescued a few out of dumpsters, to be honest, and dusted them off, found out what the problem was, which is usually a minor thing, and got them up and running so many times. And so I just thought I would ask a professional about that. And I thank you for your time. And,
not a problem. Glad to oblige.
And your input. And we're going to leave this video short. I just wanted to see whether or not it is really worth the time and energy to play around with the BIOS in these older computers to make it say what you want to say. It's more of an experimental thing, as you've kind of pointed out. All right, thank you so much for your time.
One final Sparky hardware hint. Before you reach for your soldering iron, take a look to make sure you're grabbing the coolant.
Yes, the coolant. Good tip. All right. Thanks again, folks. Thanks for listening. God bless you.